Sony has finally addressed their massive controversial decision to kill off PlayStation physical games in January 2028. We got the official response straight from Sony's leadership during a shareholder Q&A right after their latest earnings report. And look, if you were sitting there with a coffee hoping for some sort of dramatic reversal today, like them putting up their hands and saying, "We messed up, discs are staying," you're probably going to walk away from this a little bit disappointed. But if you actually read between the lines of what they're saying, there's something major worth paying attention to here. During the call, shareholders and journalists really pushed Sony on these plans, which is good to see as we've heard nothing about it since the announcement, and the company gave a fairly straightforward, boring corporate answer like you'd expect, but there are cracks showing. Let's just have a chat about what was actually said, what it really means for us, and why Sony is coming across way less confident than they want their investors to believe. First off, they claimed that so far there hasn't been any noticeable drop in sales since the announcement went public to stop physical games, that is, and they frankly don't expect that to change once the policy actually kicks in 2028. And we need to be totally transparent about the numbers they are bragging about right now. Just yesterday, Reuters reported that strong performance in Sony's gaming business helped them deliver a massive 40% jump in their first quarter profit, and they even hiked their full year's earnings forecast on the back of this. They are making absolute bank right now, but here is the massive glaring catch that they obviously would not say out loud. Those Q1 financial results only cover the period from April to the end of June. Sony announced the death of physical games on the 1st of July. So any financial impact, any cancelled pre-orders, any spending freeze from the massive community fallout literally will not show up on their balance sheets until the next quarter results at the earliest. Of course, they haven't seen a drop in sales yet. The data they are looking at is from before they made the announcement. They didn't completely dismiss what gaming means to people though. They did acknowledge that physical games carry sentimental weight and that players have strong emotional ties to their collection. Sony's Chief Financial Officer Lin Tao, speaking through an interpreter, gave us the exact reasoning. I'm going to read you exactly what she said. There are various reasons we made this decision, the biggest being that the digitalization of content overall has been progressing. That's the big factor. It's not just for PlayStation, but for all kinds of content. Digitalization is progressing. So there is the corporate justification. They are basically just pointing at movies, music, TV and saying, look, everyone else is doing it, so we are too. They're leaning heavily on their internal data, showing a massive chunk of the audience has already shifted to digital purchases on their own. We need to pause right here and talk about those numbers because that explanation is pretty flawed. The whole everything is going digital argument is a major point of debate right now. Sure, digital sales are on the rise, but those figures do not tell the whole story. A massive number of modern games launch exclusively through digital storefronts now. They leave customers with absolutely no physical alternative in the first place. Of course, your digital sales percentage is going to skyrocket when you literally force people to buy digitally. And has anyone noticed how difficult it can be to get your hands on a physical copy of a new game? I noticed it when Pragmata and Resident Evil 9 released. Did you? And that argument gets even more twisted when publishers combine PC and console sales in the exact same statistics. PC gaming has been almost 100% digital for over a decade, so when you lump those Steam sales in alongside PlayStation purchases, it artificially inflates the percentage of digital transactions to make it look like console gamers are completely abandoning physical media, when that just isn't really the case. It's skewing the data to fit their narrative. Sony also pushed back on a massive point that a lot of people have been making. People have been arguing that PlayStation physical discs are one of the main things that separates a console from PC. Sony argued against that. They reckon that consoles win on affordability and stability, not on whether you can physically hold a disc in your hand. What do you all think about this? Let me know in the comments, because I disagree with that. You guys know my stance on this. My library is completely built on physical games. I always try to buy physical discs because I want to actually own the product I am dropping 70 quid on. I want to lend it to a mate, I want to trade it in if it's an absolute stinker of a game, or even just return it to the store, and I want my son to be able to play it on his console one day. That is true consumer ownership. And as a bonus on top of all that, there's just something special about having a physical game and the cool box art, and just being out shopping and then stumbling across a bargain game to pick up to add to the collection. I love it. Then we get to the quote that honestly rubbed me the wrong way. Lin Tao addresses the backlash directly and said, "And to this decision, we have received various opinions and people have strong views, and we understand that the community has put forth those views to us. Games are loved by many people. It's a form of entertainment that's loved by people, and it's connected to people's fond memories in many cases. And so we understand those emotions. We want to consider that." Connected to people's fond memories? Let's be honest, that sounds very patronizing. They are framing our massive legitimate concerns about true ownership and game preservation as just nostalgia. Like we're just clinging on to the past because we have fond memories of holding plastic boxes. I don't buy discs because I'm nostalgic for the 90s. I buy them so my games can't just get delisted and wiped from a server whenever Sony feels like it. And you know what makes that fond memories comment even worse? The absolute hypocrisy of it when you look at Sony's own consumer electronics division. Despite being a completely niche physical format that was supposedly replaced by CDs and then destroyed by digital streaming decades ago, Sony still manufactures and sells brand new vinyl record players right now. They're actively marketing them. They clearly see that consumers still place a massive value on owning physical entertainment products. The rationale here is incredibly simple. Companies do not keep making products unless there is a sufficient demand to warrant it. You can't champion physical media for audiophiles and then tell gamers we're just stuck in the past. And you know what I also think when they try to tell us that digital is the only way forward? They are trying to kill off physical games right when physical media is actively making a massive comeback. If you look at the recent data, 4K Blu-ray sales in the US actually rose by 12% in 2025. Over in the UK, physical music sales grew by 11.5% last year, with CD sales going up by 3.7% globally. And vinyl is celebrating its 19th consecutive year of growth. People are getting sick of streaming services jacking up prices and just deleting, purchased movies from libraries overnight like Sony did recently. The broader entertainment audience is actively shifting back to physical media because they want permanent ownership. So for Sony to push this digital-only narrative right now feels opportunistic and maybe a bit short-sighted, like they are actively ignoring, consumer sentiment towards physical media and where it's actually heading, and they're trying to shut it down for their own benefit right now while they can. And this ties directly into the retailer situation, which just sounds like a bit of a nightmare. Sony clarified that they announced this a year and a half early just to give retailers time to prepare. Apparently, Sony is already in talks with retailers over in North America about shifting towards code-in-a-box packaging. How grim is that, by the way? And those same conversations are expected to expand to other regions soon. So yeah, if you're wondering if that whole code-in-a-box thing was, going to be legit, or Sony were just saying that to keep physical people happy because there was a box there, this pretty much confirms it. Think about how ridiculous that is. You drive down to your local shop, pick up a plastic case, pay full price, get home, rip off the cellophane wrapper, and there's no disc, just a flimsy piece of paper with a 12-digit code on it. It completely defeats the point of going to a shop in the first place and just creates a mountain of useless plastic waste. But here is the most important part of the entire call. When they asked Lin Tao about finalising this decision, she said, "We put in a lot of thought and time, and we cautiously considered this, and we came to this conclusion, and we're going to cautiously move this forward." They are choosing to move forward cautiously. That word, cautious or cautiously, came up again and again and again. I want you to just sit with that word for a second. To act cautiously literally means to proceed carefully in order to avoid risk or danger. So even while Sony is standing there insisting to their investors that they don't expect a negative impact on sales, their repeated use of that specific word tells a completely different story in my opinion. It suggests they are not entirely sure what is actually going to happen. It sounds significantly less like total confidence and much more like a massive company bracing for the possibility that things could actually shift. That combination, acknowledging the fan backlash while still moving ahead cautiously, is the absolute clearest sign we have that Sony is a little bit uneasy about this decision. They're not ignoring the outrage, they're not pretending the criticism doesn't exist, but right now they're leaning on the data, and the data hasn't given them a financial reason to stop. And that is exactly where we all come in. Before I go on, a quick reminder, if you enjoy these chats and want to support the channel, click the join button down below to become a member, and it helps out the channel massively and you get access to a bunch of cool perks. Thank you to all our amazing Renegade channel members. So if PlayStation physical discs suddenly start outselling digital downloads, not just for a random week, but consistently over an entire quarter or multiple quarters, that would be the kind of shift that Sony literally could not explain away to their investors. It wouldn't matter what their internal projections said before, real, sustained purchasing behaviour from us would physically force them to reconsider. The exact same goes if enough people simply stopped spending money in the PlayStation ecosystem altogether. If a large enough portion of the PlayStation community walks away entirely, refusing to buy or engage at all, that would carry even more weight than a shift towards physical alone. Either way, sustained action is what will actually move the needle here, not just scattered complaints online. This is also probably part of the reason they announced the change so far ahead of the actual cutoff date. It gives them time to watch how our buying habits evolve and adjust their plans if the numbers start moving in a direction they didn't expect. Right now, Sony's messaging to investors is built entirely around the claim that the data supports this move. If that data starts trending differently, their justification falls apart. Now let's keep it grounded here because there is a catch. Sony could just as easily respond to any shift in demand by limiting physical game production even further. They could essentially manufacture scarcity here so that a meaningful shift in the numbers becomes basically impossible. There's already been a fair bit of that happening, so if that becomes the plan, buying physical games gets harder no matter how many of us want to, and the only leverage we have left is spending nothing at all. On the flip side, if most major releases heading into the rest of the year, the holiday season and into 2027 continue getting solid physical runs with enough copies to meet real demand, there's still a genuine opportunity here. But there's also a massive wildcard sitting right on the horizon: GTA 6. GTA 6 is confirmed to be code in a box and a fully digital release. There is absolutely no physical option at all, which absolutely sucks. And this is arguably going to be the biggest game launch in the history of the industry. That alone is going to distort the data in a huge way. Even if a massive number of players commit to buying PlayStation physical games elsewhere, GTA 6's digital only rollout could easily offset that shift almost entirely on its own, as nearly everyone I know is desperate to play the game, including me. So look, it's not a guarantee, and it would be naive to assume this is already turning round. Reversing a decision like this takes a lot, and the company has made it incredibly clear that data, not sentiment, drives its choices. That doesn't mean the backlash is pointless. If anything, the backlash is likely a big part of why Sony is choosing caution over confidence in the first place, so well done to everyone voicing how unhappy they are about this. Keep it up. But ultimately, this all comes down to how we, the fan base, actually spend our money over the next 6 to 9 months, not how loudly people complain about it. If digital purchases keep dominating as they have been, this decision goes through exactly as planned. For Sony to walk this back down the line, they'd essentially need to tell investors that their cautious approach revealed a meaningful shift in the numbers, enough to justify continuing PlayStation physical discs into the next console generation and beyond. That's the bar. It's a super high one, but not impossible. Still, keep that word in mind. Cautious. Sony didn't say confident, they didn't say certain, they said cautious. More than once in a room full of investors. That alone tells you they're leaving room for this to go differently than planned, even if they're not banking on it. Let's make them see those numbers. There is one really weird thing I've noticed about this whole situation, and it is the community's reaction to it. It's a very strange one. Gamers who are pro-physical media, like myself, are all about choice. We want physical games to exist alongside digital games because having those options benefits all of us. Yet the gamers who are fiercely pro-digital seem to want only digital, and they actively want to get rid of physical games entirely. Why? Why actively cheer for fewer options and something that will in the long term harm you also? It's so bizarre to me, and it definitely plays right into the theory that there are a lot of corporate bots out there trying to artificially influence public opinion on the matter. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Are you going to be voting with your wallet and buying more physical games, or are you just going to walk away from PlayStation entirely? Or does nothing change because you are digital only? Or does nothing change for you, like me, as you buy physically when you can already? I'll be buying my games physically where I can, and my indie games digitally as they're only available digitally. And heck, I guess even GTA 6, as I can't get it physically. Drop your full thoughts below. And if you're curious what the future holds for PlayStation 6 hardware, make sure you check out this video on screen where we explore why a traditional PlayStation console is looking more and more unlikely.